goes.
You're all set.
Okay. I'd like to call the Sherborn School Committee meeting to order on this day at 6:35. And we're going to rearrange the schedule just a little bit and let Donna go ahead with the School Nutrition Advisory Committee update. So we'll do that first and then we'll jump back. Okay? Great, thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Donna Moore, and I am a member of the School Nutrition.
Donna, hang on.
You have to sit down and have
Oh,
to talk.
okay.
Into the
Oh, no, that's okay, that's okay. Oh, I didn't know I'd get to sit.
You're on
This is
TV.
great. Okay. So again, my name is Donna Moore, and I am a member of the School Nutrition Advisory Committee. And I've come in front of the committee before, and the reason that I'm here tonight as a SNAC member is to provide the committee with an update on our collaborations with Janelle and with the administration regarding the school lunch program. So before I do that, I just wanted to take a step back and I guess kind of answer the big picture question, which is, why is school lunch so important? And there are two reasons for that. And it starts with, if you look at this picture on the PowerPoint, it starts with student learning and overall health. So the first reason is that we have a responsibility as parents and as educators to make sure that our students have access to and are also consuming school food that supports their overall health and their student learning. And there is so much evidence-based research that shows that learning connection and the connection between what children eat during the school day and their overall health. And I've provided for the committee some materials that I left on the counter here for you to take with you, but obviously tonight there isn't an opportunity to go into that in depth. And the second reason is really what we are serving to students for lunch is an opportunity for us to educate students that the food choices that they make during the school day do matter to both their academic and to their physical well-being. And so that's really why SNAC came together and why we're looking forward to working with the school committee and with the administration to move along what I know I've described or talked about with the committee before as a continuum. So, you know, you have this starting point about where school lunch is, and I think it was almost 3 years ago this month, or maybe it was June 1, 2010, that I first came and introduced myself to the committee. And so in that 3 years, the good news, the great news, is that we've moved further along that continuum. And I wanted to share with the committee some of the things, some of the progress that's been made in large part because of Janelle Madden and her staff, who work really hard every day. And I have to say, as a kind of a high note, Jen Lawrence is on the School Nutrition Advisory Committee with me, and one of the things that we've done at Pine Hill is we have something called Healthy on the Hill. It's a little soundbite that goes into the CSA newsletter every week, and Jen had the great idea. She saw something online that was through the Obama administration about who are your superheroes. Well, we have a superhero lunch person of the week. So next Monday, there's going to be a blast that goes out to parents saying, you know what, sit down and have your kids write a thank you note, because they all know Judy. She stands at the checkout. She knows every child's name. She knows whether they're allowed to buy this or that. And, you know, it's really, really important for us to acknowledge, and I think that we do acknowledge that, and we will do that next Monday. So I just wanted to go through an overview of some of the really, really significant moves forward that the school lunch program has made in the past few years. And the first one is removing some very highly processed items from the lunch line. And some of those were the Uncrustables peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and ribbies that were kind of like a pork sandwich product, and then yogurts that had artificial dyes and high fructose corn syrup. And you know, I think this is an example where the food manufacturers are really slow in moving towards really helping with the federal regulations that have come down. The food manufacturers are kind of slow on the uptake, and I know I've spoken with Janelle about this at length, that she's trying to get, you know, a desirable, healthy product in, and oftentimes she can't get it. But this is an example of where the manufacturers have kind of followed suit, and they're taking artificial dyes and high fructose corn syrup out of the yogurt products, so we are able to get a healthier yogurt on the serving line. The other thing that's changed, that has been a big change at the elementary level, and this was driven by state regulations, is that the sale of ice cream has stopped at Pine Hill and at Chickering. They still have a frozen fruit bar that's sold, but ice cream sales have stopped. And then, as I know that the committee is aware, because the committee was a big part of this, is that a new serving line went in a couple of years ago, and then also with CSA auction funding and then further private donations, a freezer went in. And the big change that has brought about is a change in the serving line. And I actually took this picture yesterday. I went to visit and spoke to Judy, and I just wanted to point out that on the left, that's hummus that Judy made herself, and coleslaw that Judy Carnes, who's the kitchen manager, made herself. So Judy's really committed to trying wherever and whenever she can to get fresh whole ingredients in and make terrific food, and I've had the hummus and it's outstanding. So that's an example of a change that, in this case, the change in equipment has allowed to happen. Another thing that's happened district-wide is there has been a periodic use of less processed meats. And the word, I guess, the phrase that's used is whole muscle meats. So you'll see on the menu now things like roast chicken. And yesterday, I didn't really capture it on the picture, but there was pulled turkey, so like a barbecued pulled turkey. And I saw Judy Carnes and Allison Fiorenzi, they were shredding the turkey themselves. So that's exactly where we want to be moving along the continuum, to get more of those fresh whole ingredients and to be cooking in the kitchen rather than heating and serving processed packaged foods. And that's, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. The other great thing that Janelle has done is she's worked really hard to partner up with Van Garden Farm, predominantly for root vegetables, and that's mostly been at the middle and high school. And also she's planning to work with Sunshine Dairy next year on a larger scale to get corn and tomatoes and broccoli. So great stuff. And then at the middle school and high school, they have had a deli bar twice a week and a periodic salad bar. And this is an example of something, I did bring some survey results with me tonight, both from family surveys that canvassed all 4 schools, and then there was a high school survey that was done by the Student Council last spring. And this is an example of something that has started to happen, but that students want to see more of. And then the last item on the list is something that's recent, but very empowering for the students. They've started to have discussions with Janelle about what it is that they want to see. You know, what do you like about the lunch line? What do you not like about what you're, you know, being offered for lunch? And another issue that's come up that's been very productive is discussion about signage. Oftentimes the kids will go through the lunch line and they'll sit down and their friend will have soup and they're like, oh, I didn't know that was available. So again, you know, communication and getting signage improved so that kids know what's great for lunch. So if you take a look at this list, you can see that a lot of progress has been made. And the bottom line is that's a great thing for our students. And I think when we're talking about that continuum, the reality is that we have further to go. And I guess in a way, really what it starts with is student and family satisfaction, because in order to nourish children, you have to get them buying lunch. And they're not going to buy lunch if they're not a satisfied customer. So I know that school lunch isn't running a restaurant, but I don't think it's a bad thing to have like a healthy concept of, you know, running a restaurant. How do you bring customers in? And I think that's where the student and the family surveys really play a part, because if you are striving to improve the school lunch program, you're trying to increase satisfaction, your customer satisfaction. That's going to increase your lunch participation rates, so you're nourishing more students during the school day. And at the same time, you have the potential for increased revenue so that you can boost your purchasing power and you have an opportunity to buy those higher quality products. So in a way, it becomes a little bit of a chicken and the egg, like where do you jump into the pool and start swimming? But I think where that's going to come is finding out what is it that students want to see and how is it that we can make that happen. So the biggest, I guess the place where we are right now along that continuum is we've made so many short-term improvements, but the next step is going to be moving away or transitioning away from what in the food services industry is called a heat and serve model, where schools are relying on heating and serving processed packaged foods rather than cooking in the kitchen with whole, fresh ingredients. And so that's really the next step that we are going to need to take, and for really two reasons. Because again, that evidence-based research has shown that schools' lunches that rely on processed packaged foods compromise learning and they compromise students' overall health. And then the second is that it's not, students want to see fresher, healthier foods. And I'm going to jump to the surveys just to, I grabbed a couple just to show an example of that. This is a PowerPoint that one of the SNAC members did, just kind of summarizing the survey data that was taken from the 2011 surveys that were done of all 4 schools. And these were filled out by parents. So, you know, we call it the family survey. But what it shows is that a pretty significant percentage of families at Pine Hill, it's over 50, about 55% of families don't think that the menu shows a sufficient variety of healthy food and beverage choices. So they're looking for fresher, healthier foods. And also significantly, you can see that Pine Hill and I guess the high school are the highest, that parents would allow or encourage their children to buy lunch more frequently if higher quality foods were offered. So that's where you get into that cycle of customer satisfaction and participation rates. You know, we have to kind of get people jumping in and buying lunch so that it can be the kind of quality that will support learning and overall health. And again, I think this is telling, you know, the question always becomes, you know, well, how are we going to do that on $3? And I'm certainly not here tonight saying, okay, let's vote on an increase, you know, for any sort of price. But I just wanted to share with you that Pine Hill parents, over half of them indicated that they would pay between $3 and $4 for school lunch. And then you can see, of course, the percentage drops, but there is still a contingent of families who would pay between $4 and $5. And whether or not that's the case, I think it still speaks to the fact that people understand that a quality lunch costs money, and they're not expecting that that's going to happen at $2.50 at Pine Hill. So let me just jump forward. So in order to move forward along that continuum, I think, you know, gathering information as we have done about student satisfaction is a very important part of the puzzle. And then the materials that I'll leave with you tonight, SNAC has made recommendations about I guess a multi-step plan for transitioning towards what they call a scratch cooking model. And what that means is, you know, what is it going to take to get the district schools in a position where they can get higher quality ingredients in, have the staff and the training to cook fresh, healthy foods. Another piece that I just want to leave with you tonight is I actually learned there's this great segment on WGBH about healthy food in schools, and it's a 40-minute radio segment. So if you can find a way to download it in your car, basically you could have like tuned out every single thing I said tonight and just listen to this, and I would be so, so happy. But what it says, and the reason I was very excited about this, is it shows that it can be done. Of course there are challenges, of course there are steps you have to go through, but it is doable and schools are doing it. And so I think that's another really important piece of the puzzle for us as far as next steps, is that other schools are doing it. They're facing the challenges, and I think it's really important that we as a committee and the administration and the school committee take a look at schools around us who have made that commitment to scratch cooking, who have made that commitment to buying healthier and higher quality ingredients, and they're doing it in a cost-effective way. They're making the changes they need to, and that's a plan that that we have with SNAC and with the administration and with Janelle. We're going to visit some of these schools and do, you know, what I call fact gathering and find out what works, what doesn't, and take steps from there. But I just wanted to share with you very quickly before I finish just 3 examples, and these are just examples of area schools who are making it happen. And that's the thing, you know, when we talk about making this transition away from packaged processed foods, it's not like we're like way ahead of the curve here. Like, I feel like, you know, I guess in a way what we're doing is we're like trying to keep up with the curve, because schools are out there and they are making it happen as we speak. So an example of that is Concord Carlisle. You can see their price is a little bit higher than ours, but not by much. They have made a commitment to scratch cooking. They're sourcing meat from other sources than the USDA commodities, which is a whole other discussion for another day, but just very interesting. I want to know, I want to talk to this food services person and say, how are you able to do that and charge $3.50 for lunch? Because I think that's a really useful piece of information.
Do you know that it's working? They've been doing it long enough to know that they're not being subsidized by something else?
You know, I don't, because we haven't had a chance to talk to the director, but and his name is escaping me at the moment. But I have an article about him that he's a very interesting person in that he does look at the school lunch program with like that healthy sense of you know, the competitive model, in that he's like, how do I get students in? How do I get them buying lunch? And I think that this, in his mind, was a way to do that. And in fact, he said in this, I think it was a Globe article, he said since they've made these changes to bring healthier foods to the school, they've had an increase in participation. So again, it kind of speaks to that higher quality, higher satisfaction, lunch participation, you know, that whole big picture. And again, for a discussion for another day, a breakfast program that they've been able to put in place. Another school is Weston, which again has the same price point that we did have, and again, commitment to scratch cooking. You can see the type of meats that they're using are not USDA commodity. It doesn't mean they're not using any, and again, that's where more due diligence is necessary to find out, you know, what balance they're using. Another thing I wanted to point out about Weston that's on their website, which I think is another area that we really need to work towards as far as Dover Sherborn, is that there's no place on our website, on the regional website right now, where parents can go and get more information about the food services program. Why do we do what we do? How are we moving forward? You know, how have the regulations affected school lunch? And that's an example of something that Weston does do, and I think that's an opportunity for us. But one thing that I did find that I'll just also leave for you is Weston went in front of, the food services went in front of the school committee in 2010, and they put together this PowerPoint. And the reason that this really struck me is I thought, boy, this looks just like the continuum that we're talking about. And what they're doing is they've rolled out over time all of these positive changes. And among them are the types of things that you see here. And another thing that's really important, and a big part of making change and making changes with kids, is that they have they rolled out this school year a taste test program for grades K through 12. So, you know, the first time that my daughter Avery tried spinach, she was not loving it. But you know what? If I was able to give her like one leaf, or, you know, fill in the blank of whatever the like new food is, if you can empower kids so that they have the choice to like just try it, then over time they're gonna make the changes. And that's what this WGBH radio segment talks about, and it's actually this whole Harvard study that they've done about how to make healthy food in schools work. So So I'll leave both of those with you. And then the last example is Ashland. And as you can see, their price is less than ours, but the same kind of commitment to scratch cooking is there, and they have built in a variety of meatless options for students who may have different dietary preferences. And again, kind of a page back to using less processed meats and using whole muscle meat. So they're in the kitchen, you know, whatever the meat is that they have, they're roasting the chicken breasts and so forth and so on. So that is the sum total of my update, and I guess SNAC's vision for where we hope that the district can move forward from here. And as far as SNAC's request to the school committee is really just a request for your support as far as moving forward. You know, it needs to be a joint effort. It can't be, you know, a parent committee. I can show you all the evidence in the world, and believe me, I could provide you a stack, but it needs to be a joint effort. And I think that the bottom line is that we all want to make sure that our kids are nourished during the school day. We also want them to have the opportunity to buy lunch, because wouldn't a working parent love to say, you know what, I'm gonna have, you know, Johnny or Avery or Susie buy lunch 5 days a week, and I'm gonna feel really good about it. So I think that's the bottom line for all of us. And so moving forward, you know, we ask for your support, and also we hope that we have the opportunity to go in before the other school committees and just explain, you know, really what I just went through tonight. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I add, under Donna and many parent volunteers' grassroots effort, our students have 6 raised garden beds out behind the school, and they literally go from garden to the dining room.
Have a chance to put them in.
There's 6
That's lettuce from our garden.
and there's several
I didn't have a chance to
herb
look at the
plots
other
around the front of the building and in the rear of the building, and the students harvest if it's 1 tomato, Judy will make salsa. Last fall we had a plethora of green beans. Whatever they deliver, she works into the recipe that day.
Great. So I just wanted to make it clear that Janelle is working like with the group, and I don't know how often you're meeting with her and
Janelle
talking
comes
with her.
to every snack meeting that we have, that she's able to, of course, you know, there's conflicts, but you know, she's very receptive to changes. She's been very receptive to, we kind of got this ball rolling as far as meeting with the students, and I actually, time ran out when Dr. Brown was wonderful, and I was sending her a couple pictures today, but we didn't have time to put them in the PowerPoint, but I had a picture of, there was literally this round table discussion of middle school and high school students with Janelle. I think it was on May 1st. Everyone literally stood around the countertop in the kitchen. And I think there were about 20 students, and they were excited, and they had ideas, and she and Bonnie Turco, who's the kitchen manager at the middle school, high school, they were listening, and they're like, well, that's gonna work, that won't work because of X, Y, Z. And of course, you know, they talked about the cooking equipment they have. You know, I'm sorry, but we can't really make, you know, on the spot stir fry because we don't have that capability. And so it's really just a question of what's doable and what's, you know, what's realistic. I don't think anyone is sitting, you know, is talking or advocating for gourmet food. That's not what we're talking about. It's not about, you know, how would you like your you know, your special ordered XYZ. It's just about simple, fresh, healthy food.
Right.
Can I just add really quickly? I think something to think about too, though, is consistency too, so that, oh, I like it when it's further away. I think that's part of the issue for kids too, because like, oh, it was really good this time, and then in 2 weeks it's the same thing, but it's not good that time. And so I think that is something that would help increase participation as well for the kids.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it may be at some point that the committee would like to see, and I would be happy to share, like the actual survey results, because like the high school survey alone, there were like hundreds of write-in responses. And, you know, you had, you know, the smart aleck responses, and you had the really helpful responses. It was just, you know, they were saying, this is what we like, this is what we don't like, and very specific. And so, you know, I think that that's a place to work from or to build from, you know.
Any other
Well, this is a
comments?
topic that's near and dear to my heart. I think that we should be looking at the quality of our foods and moving along that continuum. So I hope that we can continue to work with Janelle to do that. I like the data, and would like to maybe see a little bit more on the data that actually shows, you know, the healthy food with the academic improvement, because if seeing that makes the argument even stronger that this is something that we really need to be doing.
Yeah.
Because one of my focuses is always, what can we do to improve the academics of our students? How do we keep, you know, the Dover Sherborn kids and Sherborn kids, you know, number one? And if we improve their food, if that's one of the ways it's going to help, then that's certainly one of the ways we need to be looking at.
Absolutely. And there's a document that's kind of in the expanded materials, and I was thinking I have a copy of it, and perhaps I could leave it with Susan with a copy of the kind of the memo and then the research. But one of the documents is was put out by the Alliance for Healthier Kids, and there was a version of this that came out in 2010, and they just did a revised version, so it came out literally weeks ago, and it's entitled The Learning Connection, and it talks all about that. So, you know, the ties between school food and learning are so profound, and, you know, energy levels, brain function, you know, attention, it's all there. And I think it's really important because that's why it matters. That's why we're talking about it. You know, it's really not just school lunch, you know. And then, you know, the statistic alone about overall health, just to, you know, a little piece to leave you with is one question that several parents have asked me over the past several years is, well, why should we be so worried about what kids, you know, are eating at Dover Sherborn at lunch? You know, we don't have an obesity problem in Dover Sherborn. And thank God that's true. But there was a study that was done that was published, it was in the journal Pediatrics, and there was a study of 3,800 students that was done over a 10-year period, and it showed that 37% of normal weight adolescents have one or more cardiovascular risks. So, you know what, kids may look great and healthy on the inside, but what they're eating and their exercise levels, you know, it matters as far as their long-term health, so that the diet and lifestyle habits that they're forming today, they, you know, roll out for a lifetime. So I think that it's really, really important to acknowledge that and to understand the responsibility that we have today.
Donna, one of the things that I would ask of the snack organization, the parent group, as well as school committee, the superintendents met with legislators last week, and we're to a point that unanimously the superintendents were appealing to the number of legislative proposals that are brought forward that are passed on a universal level, saying that one particular policy is a blanket for all school districts. My particular area was the requirement for the English language learners, but my other one was the nutrition. And I think that this also can go hand in hand with what you're asking for. And I think some of the legislation that is coming down for a school district such as Dover Sherborn, I would much rather have the legislative bylaws that are looking for healthier foods to not be as stringent. When we do have students that are highly active, they may not be getting all of the nutrition that they should have. I really dislike the high school early lunch and then having controlled protein portions, and then they go maybe up till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock without having any other protein to go into their athletic practice. So the superintendents in our particular area have asked the Superintendents Association to also work with us to talk with the legislators about the different proposals and the bills that are coming out that propose all sorts of changes that ask the administration to increase a level of compliance without really being able to do some of the things that we think are critical. And certainly I think that the points that you made tonight, as far as, we don't necessarily want to have gourmet cooking, but we do want fresh food, and we do want the best we can have. And I think that some of those regulations for a community such as ours need to be revisited. I think that there are some different things that our kids may need, that those regulations wouldn't be providing them. So I think this is a time school committee, and I would ask the members of SNAC and anybody that may be watching this evening to let our legislators know we deliver a good quality education. We could do better, but as long as you keep everybody saturated with so many compliance, and I mean for all of the superintendents to unanimously, we never unanimously agree on anything, but for all of us to have unanimously agreed that we want the legislators to back up a little bit and to not give one prescription for all districts. Give us a little bit of judgment for our communities. And I think if you could let them know in the area that you're most interested in, such as nutrition, I think that would be really helpful. And I personally would appreciate that. Although I may be retiring, this is something I feel very strongly about. And I think that that's one of the things, whether it's right or wrong, I think that some of the regulations that have come down are good. And I think sometimes it's very good to have those regulations, or we may not have any monitoring. But I also feel as though, by golly, if I see an athlete or a young person and they don't have anything to eat between 11 o'clock in the morning until after they're athletic and the cooks are looking at me, I mean, as I said to the legislators, am I going to be compliant, or am I going to do the best thing for the child?
I totally agree with you, and I think to that end, one thing that's interesting about the regulations, so, a new set of federal regulations were implemented starting this school year, and one of the things that they did was they really restricted the amount of protein and the amount of grains or carbohydrates that students could be served. Every newspaper article you read across the country, schools are up in arms, it was terrible because, the little protein size, it would be like what you would feed your toddler. And so the good news is, like, right before Christmas, the regs were, I guess, frozen, for lack of a better word. And so those restrictions were lifted. And I know that we've talked with Janelle about that. And the challenge is, she's trying to keep pace with, like, are the regs changing? Are they going to change back next year? And so for the time being, the regs are allowing more protein to be served. And so, I guess as a SNAC member, I'd like to see, more protein go on the plate, because students are at school, especially at the high school, middle school, for up to 12 hours a day. And then I was thinking, okay, how much does the average teenager sleep? You work out, that's about 75% of their waking hours. And if they're getting, like, the little bit of protein. So again, I'll be the first one to write, to my legislator, just to say, hey, if those regs have been relaxed, well, then keep them that way and let schools know, and then also have the food manufacturers get with the program and make the portion sizes that Janelle can buy, because, again, that's a whole different discussion about what she's able to get and does it
So
comply.
what was the mechanism, like, the regs were pulled back, but was that because people were writing to their legislators, or is it?
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Because
They
yeah.
came out with a letter basically
Yeah.
telling everyone that they were basically freezing the restrictions
Yeah.
at this point, because
They
it's
were an
pending.
outcry across the nation.
Yeah.
Public school educators regarding. Sorry. Stop. There was definitely public, just as Donna had said, there was public outcry as far as that. But it goes back to the issue of saturating your public schools with so many issues to comply with, and this one size fits all. One size doesn't fit all, and there may be some children of which that formula may work really well for. But as long as we make blanket decisions, or we're given blanket decisions from policymakers, it puts us in a real disadvantage as we're struggling to meet each child where they are and trying to differentiate our instruction and the services we provide. I think that's a part of what makes us so strong in Dover Sherborn. And as far as the eating, ironically, I've had lunch with Donna, and we wound up ordering the same thing, and both of us really enjoying it. And looking at it, and of course, Donna made her point quite well, say, see, wasn't that a good lunch we had? And just think, that wasn't processed at all, Valerie. And she was absolutely right. But on any other given day, we may not have anything else that looks alike. And it may be that there are different dietary needs that our kids need to have, and there may be different portions that they need to have. So this is the snack issue, but I could go on and on for the rest of the evening with the list of the compliance issues that are coming down and are in existence right now, that have brought the superintendents to the position they currently are. So I would ask you to contact Glenn Kuchar, who is the executive director of the School Committees Association, and to let them know. And Glenn is a strong voice for you on the Hill as far as this issue of compliance. And it's similar to when we were being audited to death. It was about 5 or 6 years ago. So we want to stay focused on your children, and whether it's in the cafeteria, in the classroom, on the PE fields. And the compliance, and the good news is Steve is a high compliance person. I am not. So it is a good time for this change to be taking place. But even for a high compliance person, it's not necessarily the healthiest environment for public education. Thank you for letting me address that.
Oh, great. Frank had a question.
If you don't mind, I have another question. That the legislative requirement, whether that's our baseline or whether that needs to be, I mean, from one aspect, I think they're trying to do something to help young people. I mean, that's the overarching goal. Whether it's meeting that or not, that's another thing, and I really appreciate you bringing up that point. If we look and go back to what your goal is for your continuum, and making food be more healthy and taste better and look better so that kids buy more, are we going to have to increase our prices? Are we going to take a hit because of the cost of preparing the foods are going to be greater? Or are we going to be able to do something here? I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but that's...
Well, I don't have the answer to it. I think it's going to be an algorithm. You know, if you say, you know, if we sit down and it's, you know, so the price is now going to be $3.25.
Microphone.
You know, I guess one thing is, you know, having worked on this committee for three years, what I do feel very strongly about is I would never advocate for a price increase of any amount unless it was matched with an increase in quality. Because I, as a parent, you know, things are already too expensive. So it's like if we were to say, hey, lunch is going to go up to, just pick a number, $3.50, $3.75, then I think that, you know, as a committee member, I would say, well, here is what you're going to get for your money. Here's what you're going to see. You're going to see a Bell & Evans chicken product. We are moving over to, I mean, you know, just whatever example you can pick, or we're going to make a commitment to, you know, more scratch cooking and spell out how that's going to happen. And a big place that can happen, and this is another topic, again, to discuss more at another time, but the area schools that we have looked at, they have a very specifically, in their wellness policy, they have spelled out specifics of what their lunch program looks like. And, you know, when you talk about, you know, measurables or, you know, measuring attainable goals, you know, it's easier to do that when you have a wellness policy that says, you know, we make a commitment to X, Y, Z, and then you can be like, okay, are we doing this? So, and again, not so much like, oh, you need to be accountable, but to be able to spell out so that everybody's on the same page about what the goals are and what we're willing to pay, what we're willing to, you know, I know Janelle had some thoughts about equipment that might make more scratch cooking possible. And again, it's all a cost-benefit analysis. We have to take a really hard look at what's possible. You know, we're not going to wake up and walk and have a school that we walk into and we have like the state-of-the-art food stations, you know, like when you walk into some universities these days. That's not what we're talking about. So it's like, what can we do within this realm of, you know, what we have to work with? So.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Donna, that was great.
Thank you
Thanks
for
a
the
lot.
opportunity to come and speak.
And I'll make sure that we get those passed out.
Your stack of things on the way out.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Thanks.
Okay, first order of business is a reorg of the school committee, but I did want to take a minute just to talk about 2 items. The first thing I wanted to just thank Frank Hess and Frank Hook for signing on for another term, and congratulations on winning the election, and
Three more
really
years.
appreciate Thank you so much. Great. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was everybody I think knows that the superintendent is retiring at the end of this year. And I just wanted to take a few minutes here to, number one, thank you. Thank you so much for your hard work and dedication and commitment to the community and to our children, their education and their well-being, and really appreciate that. The committee thanks you very much. And number two, I wanted to just highlight a couple of key accomplishments. I feel like the one that comes to the top is the strategic plan. When you came to the district, I don't think we even had one. And it's something that you've really taken charge and developed and worked and led us to have a strategic plan that we can live by and keeps us on track, and it will be with us for a while. So it's a really key accomplishment, and I want to recognize that. A couple other great accomplishments, some of the initiatives, both academically and culturally. We've had the math initiative that started this year, the world language program that's starting next year, some of the other efforts that you support, the music program, the reorg this last year, nutrition council support. These are all great things. Another big thing for me is the budget battles that you've won for us. And they've really been really tough, and I would not have survived this year if it wasn't for you and Chris and all your hard work, and I appreciate that, and everybody appreciates that. And just things like supporting the professional development for the teachers, I think that's so wonderful. It keeps our teaching at such a high level, and I really thank you and appreciate that. And then, there's so many things, I just could go on and on, but on a personal level, just thank you for being approachable and always there and, always available when we need you, and really easy to work with, and I'm going to miss you. We're all going to miss you. Thank you so much. And
On TV.
I want to hug too. Graduation.
Yeah. I suppose we shouldn't be left out here, are you?
Well, the other two better get over here now. Greg,
I'm waiting.
I need to tell you. Watch the bottom.
You're looking forward to your free time.
Oh, my golly. Watch the bottom. Oh, wow. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for two, right?
What's that?
yeah,
Or
that
what?
goes with it. It goes with it, yeah.
Whoops. Oh.
More books. for
Oh,
you.
great. Oh, great. Well, gee, thank you. I wasn't expecting this. You do know I have another meeting before I leave.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Well, I'm gonna leave. I don't know how the 16 of you all came up with different books, but it is,
Yeah.
Frank and I had a conversation about that, because he had his books wrapped, and I said, it is ironic that out of the 16, there were only 2 duplications.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
And there was a wide assortment of books that were put in the basket, so I thank you very much. It is probably the easiest part of my job was loving Sherborn, the children, number one. They're so easy. Parents, you really have done a phenomenal job of giving us just the most delightful and wonderful kids to work with and to educate. I know, those flowers are really something, aren't they?
She's hiding.
And the other, I have to say, for our sitting school committee members and those that have stepped down, it is Sherborn really has become, and we in the central office, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, as we were going through different struggles, and it's not always easy to have the 3 school committees, but all of a sudden it was like, wow, what's different about going to Sherborn? And it was really that, it was the one school committee meeting that we knew we could come to, we could discuss issues without any of us feeling uncomfortable, and it almost kind of became to feel like home. You know, that when we came, we could have conversations. The business was always handled in a professional and civil manner, and for that, all of us are happy and very appreciative. And Susan, thank you for the items that you mentioned. If I did not have the team that I had, some of that would not have happened. Chris and Stephen have been great partners, and it really has been an honor.
Great, thank you. We'll miss you, definitely.
It will be very mutual. It will be very mutual. And it's been so fast and hectic, all of a sudden, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, am I leaving? Oh my gosh, what do we need to do? And Steve and I are literally struggling for more and more time to be able to talk about different things. So you will all be missed.
Yes, we'll
But I
miss
have to tell you the truth, most of all, I'm going to miss your children.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so, and now I'm gonna turn the gavel over to you.
Well,
so
you
we
two
can-
that don't, you know, because you don't have children, don't worry, I will be missing you two, Frank down there too. Okay, now I
Okay.
have the
Yep.
gavel. That's a heck of an act to follow. Okay, I have the privilege right now of taking control of this school committee as we go through the reorganization. And what I would like to do is to open up nominations for the next chairperson of the Sherborn School Committee now that you all are re-elected. And I trust you've been sworn in?
Yes.
Yes.
You swore?
So, Greg,
You taking nominations?
I would, yes.
I'd like to nominate Frank Hess.
Okay, I have nomination for Frank Hess. Do I have a second for that?
Second?
Okay, Frank Cook has seconded that. Do I have additional nominations for the position of chair? Hearing none, may I call the vote? Those in favor of Frank Hess as the next chair? All in favor? Well, since I have 5 pros, I don't think we have to go any further. Frank Hess, congratulations, your colleagues have voted you chair. And Frank, would you like to take over at this time for your secretary?
Why don't you do that one too?
Okay. Are you telling me there's nobody that wants to do that job? We'll take nominations for the position of secretary, which for those that may not know is equivalent to a vice chair's position. In the absence of the chair, the vice chair would step in on behalf of the chair.
I make a nomination, please?
Certainly.
I'd like to nominate Frank Cook.
All right, I have a nomination for Frank Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have 3 seconds.
So we can just.
I don't think there would be any other nominations, seeing the 3 seconds, but do I have a vote, please, for Frank Cook as vice chair? All those in favor? Unanimous? Congratulations, Frank, and thank you for a word to the wise, the Franks have the power. I would like to turn the meeting over to Frank Hess now as the new chair.
Thank you.
Frank?
Next on the agenda are the minutes of March 12th. So if you could take a look at those and see if there are any additions, changes, and if not, someone could make a motion to approved.
I'll move to approve the minutes of March 12th.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Approved. Okay, next we have the CSA report.
Okay, well, since we've seen you last, we've had the Mad Men auction, which was very well attended. I can't give you numbers because there's so much money that we're still counting it. No. So, we're still working on, bidding for good. We're just trying to get all our ducks in a row before we say how much we make. But, we appreciate that you guys came to enjoy the event, and we think you had a good time. We hope you had a good time. I don't know exactly how much furniture, maybe you know, but I don't know, Barbara, how much furniture we were able to buy with the giving tree so that parents were able to take a tree off, an ornament off our pine tree. And whether it was a chair or a table, they were able to make a contribution to help Lori Ryan furnish the library, just freshen it up. So I don't know exactly how many chairs at this point we have or tables. I know we have a new rug, so that's good.
And they're still trickling in through the book fair week
Yes.
donations,
So we're gonna still, parents can still buy chairs at the book fair, which is actually May 28th to the 30th. We are having.
Sarah, are you posting the pictures of those chairs anyplace? Because they're worth seeing. I mean, that's a pretty exciting.
We do have little pictures, and you know what, I'll put them on the internet, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because those chairs are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what's happening in that library is really exciting. And Dr. Brown couldn't control herself when I was there for a meeting. She had me run down to the library to look at what's happening. And we love seeing things like that because that's what ties into the learning. So.
I think Lori's doing, like, she has everything in her head, and she's spray painting bookshelves, and she's doing, a great job to just freshen it up because it gets, stale.
There's Adirondack chairs out back now
Yes.
for book circles.
And
Apple trees are about to be
I
planted.
was going to say, we did get a grant from one of the garden clubs for $300 to plant apple trees. So I think that I'd like to see them right outside the library window, which would be pretty. We are scheduled for the teachers' end of year luncheon on June 12th, the half day Wednesday, and that will be at the Natal's house. We also have a picnic on June 20th, the end of year picnic on June 20th for the kids, where we're going to provide ice cream. And last year they brought picnics, and they did it at the beginning of the year as well. And it was a huge success. The kids loved it, so we're going to do that again. We are also on when is the senior awards night? June 5th? 7th? 5th?
6th is graduation.
Okay, so the 5th. So that night this year we started something new where we're going to give 2 Pine Hill alum, a girl and a boy, $250 scholarships. So I've been working with Ellie Kinsella, and we've discussed, just 2 kids that have really stood out in their year at Dover, at Pine Hill, and then Dover Sherborn, and then middle school as well. And we have a couple names, so it's all good. And I'm looking forward to just being able to present because we've never done it before. And there are kids that have just done that are remarkable, and they're nice, and they're not necessarily the smartest kid, but they're really giving, and I'm actually very excited about that. We have all but 1 position filled, hopefully for next year. So we're going to send the ballot out soon. That's actually very exciting for us. And actually, the best part was that we were approached. So, I mean, yes.
To twist any arms.
No. We just did a lot of, buy you an ice cream. So that's good. our fundraising, or our Mad Men auction, one of the auction chairs wanted to do fundraising, so she's excited to start that. We have the date set for the fun run in the fall, which is October 5th, or October 8th, and I'm trying to think what else. I think that's it.
Can I just make a quick plug for the book fair that's coming up?
Yes,
Yeah, that was the other
the 28th to the 30th.
That there will be a wide variety of books, including books for preschoolers, and there'll still be, like last year, there'll be books for middle schoolers, high schoolers, and adults. And the same woman who ran it last year is running it this year, and she's fabulous. She really is. And Valerie, actually, you have a command performance, because my daughter's planning to take you through
Oh,
here. And
great.
so she's already talking about it, so.
I
I'll
shall
have to
look
get you two
forward to
together.
it. The best shopping in town.
But I really encourage you, it's a better selection and actually better service. Carolyn, the woman who runs it, you can ask her anything, like, my child liked this book, and she'll come up with 10 other books that would be sort of like that. So she's really great, so please come.
What was the date again? I'm sorry.
It's the end of this month.
To the 30th. It also falls in the open house of
Kindergarten.
kindergarten, so that's good.
It's the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after Memorial Day.
Yes.
What times?
Oh, come on.
For school committee members, 24/7.
Let me know. We'll make sure that the doors are open for you. We can let you know that information. I don't exactly have that right here.
The late night's gonna be Wednesday night. I'm doing it.
Is that the open house?
Kindergarten.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the subcommittee reports. So, Dr. Brown, your world language report?
Just an update that,
Mr. Hess, may
Yes.
I just, so will you both be at our next meeting?
That's June 4th?
Yes?
I don't know. Let's see who's on here.
Actually, I'm gonna be away.
Oh, I'll
All right, so in the event, if I may, both of you have been absolutely exceptional, and not only in your roles as CSA, but also when there have been issues at school, and trying to enhance the communication with our parents so that they better understand the budget. I have to compliment you both. Thank you for serving in this capacity. It has been very beneficial to the central office as well as to the school committee in Pine Hill. I truly feel it's been a partnership, and I love seeing both of you all decked out at the Mad Men. You're being very modest. It was absolutely the social happening of the year. But thank you so much for all that you've given. You've given generously. Thank you, Mr. Hess.
an update on World Committee. We have a published curriculum for kindergarten Spanish next year. We have hired a dynamic and talented teacher, Miss Laura Romer, who I look forward to bringing to a future meeting. And Chickering and Pine Hill are working out the scheduling. The Spanish teacher will be at Pine Hill in the morning because we feed our children. We have a long instructional morning, and Chickering has a longer instructional afternoon in kindergarten. So that works out nicely. And we've started acquiring enhancement and curricular materials to support the instruction. So we are ready to say something in Spanish. We are ready to vamos.
But it's actually Dr. Laura Romer is her name, and she's phenomenal. We had the pleasure of meeting her at the central office. She was in to meet with Valerie last week. She is dynamite.
Wow. That's
So
phenomenal.
my Boston accent, Laura Romer, doesn't
Laura.
cut it.
She's
Laura Roma.
Laura.
And she's native speaking. She's from Argentina. Happens to reside locally in one of our communities. I won't share that for personnel reasons, but unless I can.
No, you don't have to share
Yeah, we
that.
don't.
But it is very
but,
interesting that in her native country, she was a doctor. And in coming to our country, she looked at what was required and did some work in the medical field. And her path led her into education. And then she decided, I really am loving this. And got her certification. And I just think her journey is fascinating. I would really like, Barbara, if perhaps you and Dr. Nugent would invite her to the joint meeting,
since all of the school committees had such an interest in this program. And I don't think there's anybody that would meet this woman that would not be impressed with her right off the bat. She's very bright, she's quick, she certainly knows her language. We might have a little Argentinian accent in our Spanish, but I think that will go along with Castilian. I think we're okay with that. But that was one of the things that she had pointed out. She has a deep respect for the teachers that she'll be working with. I just see nothing but huge success for this program.
Before we finalize any candidate recommendations, of course, we have teachers do demonstration lessons so we can see if they can actually not only interview well, but connect with children. And it was one of the most dynamic observations I've ever had the opportunity to watch. The children, the kindergarten children were a class at Chickering School. They thought they were multilingual within 20 minutes. They were so with her, and not a word in English. The whole, the whole lesson was in Spanish. So, and I understand she's quite a good salsa-er. Salsa. So we're very excited about the acquisition of Spanish in our kindergarten program next year. And that's it on world language.
Okay, thank you, and you're on next also for the academic excellence there. Principal's report.
Super. Well, I would like to recognize the acquisition of technology in our school, most recently through a generous DSEF grant that our teachers are very excited to be using iPad devices with students to enhance instruction. And we had a training earlier this month. 10 slots were available for our teachers and 30 of them signed up. So we expanded the training. So our teachers are very motivated to be on this learning curve with our students. I wanted to thank a very generous family who originally asked me if they wanted to remain anonymous, and they since said I could share their name and identify them. So I would like to thank the Mr. and Mrs. Tayabadi, a Pine Hill family, who donated a class set of iPad minis to our school, and I believe you need to take action on that item. But they, in appreciation of Miss Gerd, their first grade teacher, and all of the hard work on behalf of all the teachers, they made that generous donation to our school. Just as an aside, we're integrating iPad mini devices with our K through 2 students and using the standard iPads with our 3 through 5 students. Just size and how we configure the apps, developmentally appropriate, educationally appropriate. So the iPad minis, we have 10 in the building. So having this additional 18 almost triples our accessibility.
Is that unsolicited? They just...
Unsolicited, walked into my office one morning, out of the blue.
Would someone like to make a motion to accept with gratitude and ask Barbara to write a letter for the committee to thank them for us?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Great.
That's really great.
Yes, I will
Nice.
write a letter promptly, thank you.
Use the iPad to write that, by the way.
I would be remiss if I didn't again thank the CSA for, and all of the parent volunteers that supported our fundraising, our largest fundraising event a couple weeks ago. So again, thank you for the participants and the elbow grease behind the scenes. It was a very fun evening. And I also wanted to mention my first experience as a Sherborn principal. I had the opportunity to experience Old Sherborn Day today at Pine Hill School. And 3rd grade transforms, the students transform, the teachers transform, all kinds of thematic learning activities as part of the Colonial America studies. What I didn't anticipate was the full garb of all of our parents that come in to support the event. From Mad Men 2 weeks ago to Old Sherborn today, in full, fully accessorized. It was very authentic. The children got to make candles and played games, old-fashioned games, and they wrote with feathers and ink and all kinds of the wooden hoops at recess, and all kinds of thematic learning experiences. Square dancing and the phys ed teacher and music teacher were putting on some thematic activity at the end of the day, and guest presenters. So it was a truly a dynamic day. As an aside note, I happened to have received an email yesterday afternoon. I always thought that the threat that there are employees for the Department of Education that police the MCAS, I thought that was a myth. And I'm here to attest that it's not. The Department of Ed sends inspectors out to make sure that we have integrity and ethical behavior with regard to test security and procedures for administration. So while Old Sherborn Day was going on in part of our building, the inspector was in the other part of our building. And after we went through his whole litany and checklist of, how we give bio breaks and all kinds of details they wanted to know, he literally peeked in windows to make sure our children were appropriately spaced. And so it was the dichotomy of thematic learning and accountability at its best. So it was an interesting day. Personnel update. Our school psychologist, Allison Cates, that's a .4 position, 2 days a week, has resigned her position effective the end of this school year. So Terry Green, our special ed administrator, is in the process of recruiting candidates for that. As you are aware, Jen Ryan, one of our 4th grade teachers, is taking a year's leave of absence. We're in the process of finalizing a hire that will actually be a 3rd grade teacher for a 1-year position. We have over 100 applicants. And I mentioned our new Spanish teacher. And lots of enrichment activities going on and professional development activities going on. You can see the comprehensive list there. And I just want to highlight one upcoming event on May 22nd. Our METCO director and Monique Veal and our METCO liaison, parent liaison to the CSA, Sarah Shea, have organized what will be a great event for our students from Boston and the host families on the afternoon of May 22nd. So if you're in the neighborhood, stop by for music and activity and pizza. Moving along. Shall I continue?
To the MCAS?
I was asked to report on our kindergarten enrollment status. At this point, we have publicly recruited families that we are aware have school-age children who are eligible to enroll next fall. We held a parent information session, the kindergarten teachers and myself and some of the support staff, and we have gone through the process of conducting screening appointments and finalizing registration forms, et cetera, for 45 incoming kindergarten students. Every week we get we're not coming or we are coming, so the numbers, the enrollments aren't finalized obviously until school opens, but there are 45 students on the docket for kindergarten next fall.
Do you know how many are eligible for kindergarten? In other words, if 45 are coming, how many potentially could there be?
45, we have 45 signed, sealed, and delivered, registered.
Right, but there could be another 5, or, in other words, I guess I'm asking, how many kindergarten-age kids are there in town?
Barbara,
So looking forward a year, in other words, if they don't show up for kindergarten, they're gonna be showing up for first grade,
yeah,
right?
Greg, one of the things that we probably could provide you that we may not have tonight is the census number, which would give you a more accurate read on how many
Okay.
kindergarten-age students would be available. We'll be happy to get that for you.
Okay, that'd be great. Who would I,
Well, I'll get
okay. Where does that come from, the town or from
Yeah.
the state? I can, that's okay, I'll get it. You don't need to worry about it.
And Karen Gallant in the front office would have the specifics of
Karen probably
Yeah.
has it. It probably would just be a telephone call to Karen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, how many kids were on the census, sometimes that's not quite up to date in terms of families
Sure.
in transition, how many families are opting to hold their child out a year or go to private school, or, should have that information at our fingertips.
In the census, the name's not available for minors. You know, so you can get the town census list at town hall, but they don't release that for minors. But the school can get that information as far as the numbers is concerned.
Oh, okay. So maybe I do
So
need to go
they
through.
might be able to give you the numbers, but I know as far as names, only the schools and the town clerk can get those, because those are held privately.
The other thing that may really be interesting to see how our enrollment might be changing too is with the full-day kindergarten. Because I know in the past, we had a number of parents that were looking for a full-day kindergarten, and they were going into a facility that provided that when we had a lesser program in place. So although this would be our second year that we'd be going into that, I think it would also be very interesting to see if that has had some impact as we're meeting with our parents as they're enrolling.
Right, excuse me, in research I've done in the past with the half-day kindergarten, first grade usually went up around 10 to 12% from what you had in kindergarten, on average.
That Pine Hill.
Yes, and that's true a lot of places where they have the half-day, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
MCAS analysis, it was mentioned last fall when Assistant Principal Phil Banios was presenting the MCAS trends from our last spring's administration, that there were some gender discrepancies. So in your packet, and if anyone's interested, I have copies here. In your packet, you'll see a statistical breakdown that was done actually by our academic excellence committee that shows in the 3rd grade through 8th grade testing across ELA, math, science, Sherborn, Dover, and region. There are multiple areas where there's statistical significance with our male students not having the statistically significant higher percentage of male students are not proficient as compared to female students. Specific to Pine Hill School, what's most interesting to me, when we look at student growth percentile student growth trends, so kids growth going from 3rd grade to 4th grade and 4th grade to 5th grade. So over that 2-year span, just the data slice we pulled up, the kids that made high or very high growth from 3rd grade to 5th grade over the last 2 years, 59%, I'm sorry, let me start with math. 52% of male students made high or very high growth in math. 69% of female students, high or very high growth. And in English language arts, 34% of males made high or very high growth, and 59% of females made high or very high growth. So there's a statistically significant.
That's, that number, the growth number's not on here, right?
I was gonna say, is that
No,
here?
the growth number's not on
Okay,
there.
I'm
That's-
looking
sorry,
here,
no,
I can't-
no. This only showed non-proficient, so I wanted to show the other end of, in terms of kids making, the percentage of kids making very high or high growth. So at both ends, it shows a statistically significant discrepancy between female achievement and male achievement in math, English language arts, and science, where we have that data. That is not a Pine Hill, unique to Pine Hill issue. That's not a unique to Sherborn issue. But it certainly warrants investigation, and I will put it on our school improvement plan for next year as an area of focus and inquiry for the faculty and I to delve into, look at some research. Clearly, there are instructional practices that are more appealing to males or females, and there's brain research and there's maturation. So as we work to evolve into the most highly constructivist and engaging learning environment that we can be for all children, that research will be really important for us. So we'll spend a year of inquiry in that next year.
So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
so the key numbers on this sheet, though, are on the far right, where it's,
They're spattered all the way across.
Right.
There's the Chickering average, Pine Hill average, and then the final column is
the difference.
the group average, yeah.
If we have both schools together, you mean?
Yes.
Now, what's the benchmark group do you have here?
Benchmark group average is all of the data for the district. Then it's broken out Chickering, Pine Hill,
Oh, okay.
and then,
Is that not the state?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I'm sorry, the state.
Okay. so
I'm
it's
sorry.
the
State.
state,
So
okay.
what do you make of the differences
Hmm.
between the fact, it's intriguing that there's such a difference between Pine Hill and Chickering, because in my mind, the kids are basically the same, the backgrounds are the same, and there's such a huge difference, especially in third grade, between in ELA, that top line, the boys and girls both is at Chickering 17.1 versus 17.9, virtually the same in terms of the percentage that are non-proficient. And then Pine Hill, obviously we've got some really smart girls in the third grade at Pine Hill compared to Chickering, because there's only 7.8 are non-proficient, but 21.4%. So it's almost, so the boys at Pine Hill in the third grade in English language are not that far away from the boys and the girls at Chickering, but the girls are like smart as a whip, it looks like. So there's a huge difference, which is alarming, but the difference is because the girls are so dramatically better. So how will you, does that make sense? Am I reading this right?
There are a number of variables that need to be looked at when we look at this type of a comparison. Example, the number of students that have been in the benchmark for each one of the schools. The other thing is if there are any type of special needs children that are also in some of the cohorts. Not that would, and the other thing I would want to do is to be able to have the inquiry go into any type of developmental lag. If I am a little girl and I am in reading class, my ability to sit still and to pay attention may be a little better than a little fella who needs to move around a little more. We're finding that there are a number of differentials that would impact some of the performance, and I think that you really have to, other than the numbers that constitute each one of the school makeups, I think that it may be really interesting to get that information to complement what's here.
Can I say, I think sort of along those lines, especially thinking developmentally, boys versus girls, that it's interesting then to look down under math, I assume where it says Dover Sherborn in the second column over, and it has boys and girls. And there's a less difference, but there's still, if you look at seventh grade, it's still 26.6 to 19.0% boys to girls. So
Where are you?
It's
Right in the middle.
under math, it's the blue
here.
Oh,
column.
blue.
is-
Oh, okay, 6,
Under
7, and 8.
DS?
So that's the middle school.
That's the middle
Okay.
school, right, but I think though that at that point, I would think
There's an interesting differential there.
there
Yeah.
remains a differential. So that I would think by that point in time, some of the developmental differences would have evened out.
Not necessarily. Middle school is a real interesting time.
Yes, it is. But I think that maybe that's maybe some of the
I think
future
where I
data
would
is
get
good to look
concerned
at.
is looking up, I think you just need to get more information. I think this is a
Yeah.
starting place, Barbara, and I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I think that there are a lot of unanswered questions on this, and based on this, I would certainly encourage you and the team to delve into that, because the differential is, it's worthy of finding out what's going on here.
Right, even if you look up above in the language arts, it's the same thing. I mean, the numbers are all higher
Mhm.
for the language arts, but there's still a big
There's
difference.
still a difference,
Mhm.
yeah.
Is this the first time we've looked at numbers like this? Or is this the first time we've ever pulled numbers like this?
I think this was done for the academic excellence.
Well, there was also a parent that asked the question about,
Right,
last
Melissa
fall about the, yeah.
wasn't here. I'll make sure she gets a
Thank
copy
you,
of this,
Susan.
yeah.
You know, when we are talking about 7.8% for that third grade or 21%, we are talking about 5 girls versus 12.6 boys. You know, so the numbers are small and it can vary quite a bit depending on the makeup of the class and the students and all that. So, you know, it is with a small sampling a little bit challenging. It's important to look at. It's important, I think, to keep track of and look at the history of it and to see, you know, what this particular third grade does in fourth grade and fifth grade, and to see does it start to change? Is it the kids? And also, what are the third graders coming in? What are they doing? And looking at that. So, you know, I think this is a great start, but we also got to be a little bit careful of what it is that we're looking at and how we continue to look at it.
And our cohorts of, 40, our class sizes are our grade level sizes are anywhere from 45 to 79 right now, versus, some of Chickering's cohorts are larger. So it's statistically sensitive no matter, because we're both small cohorts, but ours is particularly small. And this is 1 year's snapshot of data. So looking at third grade, et cetera, over time, obviously is back to Valerie's point.
So can I just quickly say that Phil last year, I believe last spring when he presented, it was multiple years and there was a trend, which is where I think this first really came to our attention.
Right.
So I don't know that you've seen that.
And we're also looking internally at the percentage of males versus females in some of our intervention services and so on is notable. Again, not unique to
No.
Sherborn, but important for inquiry.
So we all think it's important and it's a first step, and there can be a lot of noise in the data. So how will you, I know you don't know specifically, but what's your vision of proceeding to learn more about this? Will the teachers will look into it, or you will look into it?
I'm envisioning us looking at some of the gender-related learning difference research and making sure, as we are doing some lofty curriculum work next year and the following year, to align our curriculum with Common Core best practices, et cetera, that we are mindful and that we keep this issue on the front burner. We need to make sure our teachers are teaching in a way that is engaging for all children. And there's a lot of research that we can benefit from visiting or revisiting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, I see outstanding teachers. I don't see anything listed under that, so if there's no one that has a report, then we will go on to the finance with Christine.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to just say thank you to the school committee. We had a very difficult budget process this year. Hopefully, next year will be less difficult, but one never knows. The good news is, we're nearing the end of the school year, and as a result of that, we have a better position handle on where we're coming in for the end of the year. Right now, I'm projecting approximately a $30,000, if you take away any variance associated with the out-of-districts, just the regular ed and in-district sped, about a $30,000 variance budget to actual, which is only a 0.6, less than 0.6%, which isn't significant. And of that $30,000, $5,000, most of it's utilities and regular ed transportation. And again, I'd like to point out in FY14, we reduced both those numbers, 5,000 in utilities and 12,000 in regular ed. So any possible variances are really starting to be stripped out of the budget, which is concerning, especially, the way the town does budget circuit breaker. The out-of-district I presented to the school committee tonight is for the Pine Hill versus the regional out-of-district. the first case, and I just realized, the second section should read the regional out of district, not the Pine Hill. But for the Pine Hill out of district, we're looking at about approximately a $49,000 positive variance. And a good portion of that is we budgeted 65% for, we budgeted 40% for circuit breaker, but it actually came in at 65%. The region is another story. Right now, we're currently projecting a $250,000 positive variance in circuit breaker, which is substantial. But as I indicate, again,
Chris,
Where's that number?
On this was the out of district with the 40% that we budgeted. This is the area that they changed on the spot during the public hearing.
that's correct.
So are we covered with that?
That's for FY14. This is FY13.
Sorry.
So of the 47,000 of the Pine Hill, 31 of it is actually because we budget anticipating 40%, but we actually received 65%. And we truly don't know that number until the end of the fiscal year.
That was my question.
Um,
And you,
The
Never
Department of Ed will give us an estimate based on what they think, but the legislative process,
it's offsetting though, right? I mean, I still don't think I understand this. It's, what you're spending this year is circuit breaker, you have circuit breaker monies that, from last year, so there's a year lag,
that's right.
sort of, right?
There is a year lag as far as the reimbursement is based on the previous year's
Right,
expenditure.
okay. And you get that money when?
We get it in that following fiscal year.
So this year, when of this fiscal year will you get circuit breaker money from last year?
FY14.
July?
It starts, we get quarterly installments.
Quarterly, okay.
Quarterly installments. But we actually don't know the final allocation almost until mid-year, because it depends on the number of state cases that come in.
Right.
I mean, the state legislature appropriates X number of dollars, and the DOE actually has to allocate that based on the formula. As far as the regional out-of-district, we're anticipating the $250,000 variance, but of that, another $107,000 is because of the difference between the 40 and the 65% reimbursement.
I'm sorry, where are the number, the 250 and the 107?
If you add up the, go to the second page, back page.
Okay.
251?
If you
Okay,
add
got
up the variances in out-of-district based on what we're projecting,
Okay.
there's a $251,000 positive variance. The majority of this variance is for two reasons. Transportation. When we budgeted in the previous fiscal year, we did not know at that time that we would have 4 children or 4 cases going to a particular placement. As a result, Accept does have a policy, if you have 4 students or more, you get a discounted rate. And that was a significant piece of this, almost $90-some-odd thousand of the $250.
That was also a savings in the FY14 budget, right?
We budgeted. That could change, though, if those 4 students, if one placement ends up going to a different out-of-district,
Right,
that could change, but we did budget the lower amount. But
right. I
that
mean,
could
that was
swing.
one of the balancing items.
Right, that could swing either way, though, I do have to say, depending on what transpires between now and September.
So when did this occur, that the 4 students were going to the same place and this savings was realized?
It could have happened in September, it could actually have happened in October. I'd have to confirm now.
Oh, well, that's fine. I mean,
With
sometime in
Audrey.
the fall.
Because they're constantly doing evaluations throughout the course of the year, and based on meetings and team meetings with IEPs, a placement may change because of the lack of growth with the particular student and the case. That's what,
As Chris said, it could happen at any
therefore the services for the child may need to change, and, you know, the placement may need to change also. So that's one of the variables that we keep talking about when we talk about the out-of-district. And fortunately, I think most of them are pretty, when we report, we think that they're pretty stable. But if the IEP meeting is held and there's a problem, that would change.
It's a complex process to evaluate and actually have a handle on these numbers.
It just seems like we didn't, it is so confusing. And you gave Terry the night off. She's not here. She's normally here all the time.
I would tell you
My
the
goodness.
reason she's not here, she's so professional. There is Terry is not with us tonight because there is a serious illness in her family. And thank you for bringing that up. I was remiss in not sharing that with you, but she had called my office and had asked for permission to go to the hospital for a family member, which was granted.
Well, it's great that she always shows up. I guess.
Thank you for bringing that up, Greg.
So
'cause
just
I've forgotten.
it seems like we didn't know this until maybe one of the second budget meetings in terms of the savings coming up, or knowing about this and it being helping with the budget process. But it sounds like the kids were taking advantage, the school was taking advantage of this in September or October or earlier. That's just a comment. That's why it's confusing as to what year it goes with and when it pops up. Thank you.
This was a new policy by Accept anyway, wasn't it?
That's correct.
It wasn't in place the year before.
That's correct.
But the 251, or that number,
Thank you, I forgot
or,
about that.
I'm sorry,
I forgot about that. You're absolutely right.
so the savings, though, is it a reimbursement then? Because we're having a variance now because we were reimbursed that discount, or we had a discount for this year?
We had a discount in FY13 that was granted by Accept.
And it
At the
wasn't-
time, we budgeted a year before. We actually go into the new school year. So at that particular, we budget based on what we know when we're starting the budget process. At that particular point, Accept had not had the policy. That was a new policy, as Mr. Hess pointed out. But also at the time, we may not have had 4 students going to the same
Right, okay.
place.
Yep. Right.
So, because that changes daily. The other issue I'd like to bring to the school committee's attention, it was mentioned at the joint meeting, but I don't believe any action was actually taken concerning contributing towards the payroll HR module that the region has purchased. And based on, we successfully and seamlessly converted the payroll for the region in-house. And we processed 3 payrolls. And I am just so excited as far as the benefits that it's going to do for us from a budgetary perspective, negotiation perspective, and just information. I mean, all that stuff was available, but to get there was a major task, to get this information. And it's going to make, I think, life much easier. And I'm working with the 2 towns because we do still need to report gross wages to them, but we'll be doing it, I think, out of the budget sense package. And that will enable us basically to provide them the data they need, but also to school committee for all of obvious reasons.
Will that be on, will our teachers be on that also?
Oh, yeah, that's the plan.
Are they on it now?
No.
Okay, so when do we anticipate that they would be on the system?
Well, we can start as soon as school committee authorizes the 5,000, we can start implementing that, and we'll have that up and running, I'd say, within 4 to 6 weeks. Our plan was to have this up and running for the whole contract process. That's one of the bigger advantages, and then obviously the budget process, because it all interacts.
Okay, when that is set up, would then the payroll warrants that we get then be set up. So they're set up by account number so that all the teachers on a certain account would be together with a total, and then the next section.
Absolutely. That's one of the,
Okay.
one of the major reasons I have to basically figure out what teachers getting charged to what, with the old structure we have.
Right, because the way it is now, you could spend 3 hours signing that, trying to figure out what position everyone is in.
Comparing to make
Sidebar.
sure that we had that the town conversation has also made sure that that is what we can deliver.
Currently, just so you understand, the town dictates the type of information that we give them and the structure of that information. But in order to address your concerns, which I agree with, we could always support the same information with a report underneath. So you could actually see the teachers being charged by account.
By account. And is this information that the treasurer here is willing to accept from this, in this forum from you?
Pete's very agreeable to this whole process. He's actually even looking to see if we can do further things to expedite what they have to do on their side to electronic conversion.
Okay, and so the share for Sherborn would be $5,000?
Yes.
Okay,
Is that a reimbursement back to the
Right.
region?
The total cost of the entire project was $40,000, so this is not even 20%.
There's, I assume there's ongoing support or something like that, annual support that we're gonna share in as well?
For now, for budgetary purposes, that amount of money was all in the region, because I had to budget it, and I
Right.
didn't know where this was gonna go. The total support package for that piece is about $4,500. So, there would be probably a 10% charge back to the two locals if you were to agree.
so are you looking for some sort of motion from us for the
Yes.
5,000,
Can I,
possibly to come out of the 30? Yes?
I'll discussion after you have a second, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so, I'm all in favor of it. Sounds like a great idea. It sounds like the process with the last contract was really horrible. So where does the money, refresh my memory in terms of where does money come from that we didn't anticipate with regard to these variances we have, these positive variances in OOD and in circuit breaker? Circuit breaker money goes back to the town, right?
That's correct.
And the 251, which is not circuit breaker money, but it's for OOD, that can be utilized in a variety of ways?
It
Or,
would fall out to the town, the way the town has it structured now, it falls out to the town's free cash.
but if we spend $5,000 that we don't, that wasn't budgeted, where does that come from?
That would come out of your $30,000
Out of the 30,
balance.
okay.
So is there anything else, though, that at the end of the, I mean, usually as we get towards the end of the year, we see what the number is, is there any other,
Barbara has
Big
prepared a list, and I was waiting and holding off to bring that to school committee in June, which will have sufficient time, because I didn't know where the election was what was gonna transpire with that. And, you know, we obviously may have had to use some of this 30,000 for security items or things such as that. So you'll be getting a list to expend. She definitely has other needs.
so I'm just wondering how much we have for the.
I would say,
$5,000.
20,
Pretty close.
25,000. I mean, technically, the bottom line of the school committee's authorized expenditure includes the out-of-district. It's just policy has been, it's always been turned back to the town. The variance.
Be a question for our budget workshop.
Greg, it really is hard because when we made the transition with the town, when the town made the transition, the school committee, sorry, it's extremely difficult because when the policy changed on the side of the town, the school committee never took different actions. So it remains as it always has. Then it gets cloudy again because what portion is from the region and what portion is from Pine Hill? And yet Pine Hill is the voting membership. So if you have to vote on it, where does that reside? You're voting on somebody else's money? So it's not an easy situation. I do think that it's something that needs to be further addressed, and I do think that this is one of those points for the workshop, that some resolution should be reached as to what school committee would like to have happen.
And I'd also, the last thing I'll say about this is, the way they do budget, we may have an additional caseload out there from a incoming out of state circumstance, which may be an out of district placement. And there's nowhere to go, because we budgeted basically what we knew today. So this 250 may roll out today, but it won't be there for next year if you have something happen.
Right.
And that's what's concerning to me.
Well, the region also, I mean, I've attended a number of the region's meetings, and they also talk about population declining at Pine Hill, increasing at the middle school and the high school. With regard to special ed dollars, should the dollars follow the children, sort of? So it's something that we need to work on. Frank, do you want a motion?
Well, does someone on the floor want to make a motion for
Sure,
$5,000?
I move that we approve for $5,000 to go towards the payment of this new payroll module.
Second?
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, do you have anything else, Christine?
No, that's it.
Okay, and so next I see the superintendent's update on here, and I see did you want to do something?
I think
Valerie?
we pretty much covered
Okay.
most of my report.
Okay, then,
Very quickly, in your packet.
Mike?
Oh, thank you, sorry. I think we've got the negotiations further on down, yes. Mr. Bliss, thank you very much for the work that's been done on the assistant superintendent's position, that we should be able to announce shortly. And the budget workshop, Frank, I think that you and I probably need to get together and do some planning with Chris on that.
okay.
That's on the calendar for the 28th, though, right?
Right. The negotiating team, I think that that's something that we'll address a little bit later. The MOU, there should be something in your packet that is for the school committee to review. Please let me know what, if anything, you have a comment on. We will be addressing that in the joint school committee meeting, of which Ms. Lonigan will be doing a PowerPoint presentation to go over everything with all 16 of the members before we go into negotiations.
So we're, okay.
Yes.
So she is going to discuss that at the next
She
joint
is.
meeting?
She is, but there was a request that we save that until you are all together and that we look at that in executive session, which you are entitled to do because it is relevant to your negotiations.
It has to be an executive session, though?
That has been requested, and it does fall under the umbrella of negotiations, so it's,
But this is in preparation for the negotiations.
Right.
Okay.
and,
This came in our packet. Oh, you didn't get it?
I did want to thank all of you for the work that was done for town meeting, and also wanted to thank the citizens of Sherborn for the support that they have provided, especially in the area of the Capitol. Frank, you really did a wonderful job of pulling together the presentation and making sure that we were well prepared, and I thank you for that. I think it went well, and this was a really special year for meeting some of the needs, and I do feel as though that by having the capital plan projected out and providing our citizens with as much data as we could was really helpful. So again, publicly, thank you for the work that you did. That completes my report.
Can I just quickly ask?
Yes.
I think the MOU, did it just come in the packets? Because I don't get one delivered, so.
I think I have one for
Do you have
you.
one for me? Thank you.
I do believe I was told to deliver that to you. Thank you.
Frank, at some point, could you tell us what the process is now that the capital budget was voted for? What happens next and how
Well,
that develops?
What they did is capital budget, aside from what we got this year, they put down a sum for each of the next 4 years, because even though we didn't put forward a 5-year plan to be voted on, they put forward a 5-year plan using our numbers. And so the first number is actually the biggest because it has some of those security items on there. And then the next 4 years, I think it's somewhere around $214,000 a year for the next 4 years, that we would look at the things on that list that was provided to us, that study, and pick from those the things we think are most urgent. So some years it might be, a little bit more than 214, some years it could be a little less depending on the items that will be on there, but that's what's penciled in by capital budget.
But for the amount that was voted for, which included windows and a number of things.
Right.
When does that start? When do you get the money?
That could be spent today. In other words, except we're not ready to spend it. You have to go and do the studies, the bids and everything. But basically, things that you pass at town meeting in the operating budget, you can spend July 1st. Things that are special articles, you can spend as soon as they're approved after the town election.
Okay.
So the good thing about that is so that some of the things that we're going to do, they're going to disrupt the school, like dig up that concrete or the windows. That can be started the day after the kids leave school. You don't have to wait till the end of June.
That would be the plan, is to do this stuff this summer,
Yes,
if possible.
yes.
Is the building committee going to meet before that happens? I mean, I have a number of questions. And
Yeah,
Okay.
we should do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, okay, next we have the tech agreement. The Education Collaborative has to come out with a new agreement. There are all sorts of new state laws that govern collaborative, and after we pass it, then all 16 towns, every school committee member in all the 16 towns have to sign the agreement. So I have it right here. Now, did you folks get this agreement or not?
I think so.
Oh,
The tech agreement?
it's online.
When checking, it was not in your packet, I was told that it was sent out to all school committee members. It should be a highlighted agreement.
Well, I mean, I had one because I was at the meeting, but I mean,
There is one online if you want to look.
I did
It's
not
that you had a
copy or
chance yet,
distribute it.
But you can see it
On the DS website?
on the DS website under this, today's,
It is on there?
under today's meeting notes, yeah, I read it.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So, right, just didn't come in the packets, but it's online,
Right.
so.
And I'm sorry, that was my misunderstanding. I had checked up on that, and I thought that it had been individually sent out to everybody, so I apologize for you not getting that individually, knowing that you'd have to give an opinion on it.
And what is the timeline for this, do you know? Would next
It's
month do or
soon.
not?
No, we have to do it before next month, and I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date, but it seems to me that it's right around the corner. I'm wondering if, Frank, we could address the part that is unique to Dover Sherborn, and that perhaps if the school committee could read that and then let me know whether they were in favor of approving that, and then being able to pass that on to you to have you sign off on it.
Okay, well, there's been some new state rules as far as our situation, where you have 3 different school committees, because basically we have really, I think, 1 membership here, but we have been getting, depending on what meeting we're at and who's the chairman, we're getting either 1 vote or 3 votes. There's 1 person from each committee that represents them. I've been going there for Sherborn, but the state rules sort of say that you would get 1, I think. That's not exactly the way it reads here. I'll read this to you, and it would be the superintendent. It says, each member district will have 1 vote unless the superintendent of Dover Sherborn, representing 3 regional school committees, is appointed as a board member. Then she has 1 vote representing the regional district. And also, in addition, this has nothing to do directly with us, but a designee of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education may be a voting member of the board. So the state can vote can appoint a voting member of our board. But the thing is that we probably would still go, one person from each committee. We probably would get one vote represented by the superintendent, as I understand it. I think it would be much better if we could actually have the 16 people pick one person, so that the superintendent could either be there in person or not be the person, depending upon how the schedule works. But it doesn't look like that's the way it is, and there's no alternate members. Before, sometimes if the person who usually comes wasn't able to come, then another committee member could go and represent you. Well, they can go with the information, but under the new rules, they cannot vote.
Correct. The other thing that is an error in the way in which the document has been written, and it does say that the superintendent would be representing the regional school committees, of which there's only one region. So if he were representing the region, that would be the middle and high school. And what we're trying to do here is, we have been very fortunate that for the last 4 years, I believe it is, we have paid one district's fee for all 3 districts. And we have also been able to vote as 3 separate districts. So we're paying for one and we're voting as 3, which, you know, if you're in Framingham and you've got a population that's a little larger than Dover Sherborn, and they look across the table and here's Sherborn and Dover with 3 votes, and Framingham has 1, along with every other district in the collaborative, I'm really quite surprised that it was the state that decided to correct that as opposed to any of our fellow membership. So I think we have been a benefactor. The only piece that I am a little bit uncomfortable with is the idea that the only voting member would be the superintendent for the 3 districts.
Right, I think that's the state rule, but
Right.
I think that's one thing we should petition, you know, our legislators to change, or the department, one or the other. Because I can understand having one person, but I don't see why it necessarily has to be the superintendent.
Right.
So I've signed this, and basically, it's not a lot different than the original one. One thing is we let Wellesley out. Wellesley went out of the organization because they belong to a couple of others, just like we also belong to Accept. So I think in the future, we're looking at rules on how people that leave would pay their OPEBs on the way out, because that's another thing. You have these retirement benefits and so forth. So it does get complicated.
Retirement benefits for the collaborative itself?
Yes.
Okay, so that means if somebody leaves, then what we're paying goes up because you still got the same dollar amount,
Yes, it does.
but fewer people paying.
Right.
Oh.
And so there was nothing in there because people weren't really thinking about OPEBs 10
Well,
years ago.
Where is that in the budget? If we've got 3 different districts, who's paying that?
It goes,
It's under the contracted services of the superintendent, and when we got the bill, we would allocate it to the 3 separate districts.
On what formula? There's like 6 or 7 different
No,
formulas.
well, like the normal formula is generally 20/20.
They have a student population formula as to how the fees are determined.
okay. Okay, well, I have this document, and I'll pass it around, and if you want to sign it, you can. If you want to wait a couple days and chase me down and sign it later, you can do that, but I'll pass it down, you can take a look at it, flip through it or whatever. And otherwise, we'll do it like we do with the warrant, and we'll pass it around and have people sign it.
Okay, Frank, but I have to have it by Monday because I'm going into Dover School Committee and they also have to sign it,
Okay.
so there's a
Basically,
little bit of a
it was-
time crunch on it.
It was passed unanimously by the board. And the fact that Dover and Sherborn had 3 votes wasn't really a big deal because most everything that passed in that board was by consensus. It was usually discussed. So there were never, any 5-4 votes or something like that as far as it was concerned. Okay, now, next it says the town meeting update. We've already talked about that. Basically, all 3 of the capital projects passed, not only ours, but the air at the middle school passed, and the other DS capital items also passed by a good margin. And so that's a good thing. It wasn't like a squeaker. They we've got pretty widespread general support. Now, the budget workshop, that's the 22nd, did we say? 28th, I'm sorry, 28th. And so Valerie and I will talk, and we'll see if we can get a budget. And if you have anything you particularly want discussed or answers you would like to have at that meeting, then why don't you let me know, and I can pass them along.
I forwarded some to Steve.
That's fine.
Do you want to see them? And I'll forward them to you too.
Okay, that would be good, thank you.
Take a look at them. You go.
Okay, next on here is the subcommittee appointments. Okay, and so since we didn't really know who was going to be there, and we have to think about this a bit, I would like to make the appointments in June. And if some people want to let me know, either at this meeting or individually, what subcommittees they might like to be on, you can do that. The negotiations committee, from what I understand, had many, many meetings. A lot of them started at 7 or 7:30 in the morning so that people could go to the meetings first and then go to work. And there were also several all-day Saturday meetings that they had. So that is a long-term commitment as far as that's concerned.
The past negotiations, I believe we began early fall, and we set the timeline for trying to bring it to closure before the Christmas break. And we were able to do that. We did meet on Saturdays. I think we started 8 till 3, I think was our usual time frame. The group does get to elect how they want to work that. They have equal members from the Teachers Association and from the school committee, but we also have representation from our towns. And you might recall that last year, both towns wanted, or the last negotiations, both towns wanted representatives. And what they agreed to, and what the Teachers Association agreed to, was fine, we'll have representatives, but it was Sherborn's year to vote on the actual calendar, contract. So Sherborn had the vote, Dover had a representative there, both representatives were beneficial. I hope that is the position of the towns again this year.
Who's in charge of that committee, that ultimate committee?
Well, it would be the
Greg?
6 people, the 2 from each committee.
Yeah, the committee will do the preliminary work of just getting the letter from the association saying that they would like to open the negotiations for, open the contract for negotiating purposes, and they will specify that it's next fall. There are guidelines that have been established for that. Our office pretty much just coordinates the meeting. The school committee has, in the past, had an organizational meeting as soon as all of the negotiators have been identified. So having the 2 members from each one of the school committees, that's the first meeting that we'll have. And then after that, they will usually determine the structure of what they want to do.
The idea that there's 2 from each committee,
Right.
I mean,
There's 2 from
Who-
each
who
committee. The
determines?
superintendent,
superintendent's part of it?
yes, the superintendent is present, and a representative from the town, and that made up our team. But we picked up the 2 towns last year, and the union said, okay, rather than just having the 8, that we would have 2 representatives from each school. They also allowed a spot for the president of their association, who then became their 9th member.
So it's like equal numbers?
Right.
Oh,
Right, and so the selectmen would vote to pick their person, and the
Right.
chairman would appoint the ones from the committee.
that's gonna happen in June? Well,
Yes.
So there's no meeting
Well,
before?
if there's, yeah, I mean, if there's any possibility that we can do the negotiating team, that's the only one that I would ask for, because we do have some pressure on trying to get you all together sooner rather than later.
You would want to meet before June 4th?
We would like to meet as soon as possible. We've asked each one of the school committees to be able to determine their negotiating team members. There's some early decisions that need to be made. I think last year we began, no, I think we actually had our first meeting in May last year, and then they set up their calendar as to how they would meet and what they needed to do and began looking at resources.
Okay, well then, from the committee members themselves, if that's one thing we might do today then, is, does anyone have any thoughts about who would want to do that or not do that? I'll tell you that there's two positions, and I would appoint myself on that committee. I would want to be on that negotiating team.
I'd like to do it. I've had discussions with Russ Pollock a number of times when he was on it, and also discussions with Ellen. You know, the time constraint was a concern, but my discussions with Russ, it sounds like it's something that you know, the more I would have the flexibility to do, and I would enjoy doing it.
Any other input, anybody?
I don't have the time, so I wish I did.
Time is an issue for me too.
Time from as well.
Okay, well, then I would love to have you on then, so I will.
Thank you very much,
I will
gentlemen.
appoint Greg, and I will appoint myself, and we will be the two members representing the committee here.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. I really appreciate that.
Okay, next we have the,
Can I just quickly say, I'd like,
Yes.
I would think it'd be something to think about sort of in the future. I understand that for people who work, that Saturdays and nights make the most sense potentially, or very early. But for people with kids, unfortunately, Saturdays, early mornings and nights are the exact times when they can't. Just sort of throwing it out there, while we're accommodating some, we're actually excluding others.
And that's a really good point. I don't know how it was before last negotiations, but that's why I'm saying the decisions are made as to what is best going to meet the needs. The teachers really preferred not to meet after school because they felt as though after a full day of teaching, they wanted to, you know, be able to give it their full attention. The group that I happen to be a part of all felt as though Saturday was the best time for them, and they were also able to get the facilitator at that time.
I would at some point, I would like to learn more for the committee about how the process goes forward with strategy during the summer and then the actual negotiation. It sounds like just sitting down and talking about it, it's just the committee, but it seems like all the members should have some say in terms of the overall
Greg?
in terms of the overall idea of what's going on. Yeah, it's odd. It's odd
I
that only
need you
two-
I know what you're saying, but I need you to, I think that what they've done is to ask Ellen Williamson if she would do kind of an overview for all of you.
I've talked with her. I
I
guess
don't mean all of you, but I'm talking about the negotiating team so that she can go over some of the structures and some of the practices and what is negotiating in good faith, what is not.
I understand that.
Okay.
Before you ever get into the negotiating room, talking about what we're going to talk about in general, it just seems odd to, in May, sequester this group of 6 people and the rest of the committee members have no idea what's going on before you even get into the negotiating room.
That's not necessarily the sequestering at that particular point.
Okay, so that's the type of, that's what I heard,
Well,
but that's what I want to learn more about.
I think that the most important thing of trying to pull you together is it's so difficult with calendars. And example, the last group that we negotiated with, their calendars were such, they felt as though if Chris and I were willing, they wanted to really meet early in the morning. So their planning times took place before work. And that seemed to work well for them, and we were able to go ahead and to meet the expectations. So primarily looking at calendars and trying to get some meeting time. Certainly, it's not going to be a situation that you don't have the opportunity to communicate from time to time in executive session. But you and Frank are the negotiators for this school committee. And they are expecting a part of the work will be that you will be negotiating with this particular team of which you'll be a member
Yeah,
of.
I understand.
It usually, the free flow of information from all committee members between each other would happen before you actually start to meet face to face.
Right.
Which we could meet in executive session, and then you'd say, here's what I'd like to see. You'd say, here's what I'd like to see, or here,
Right.
I'd like
Okay.
this in the contract, or that out of the contract. And then once you start to meet face to face on a regular basis, that's when you sort of can't go out and talk.
Okay, it was my
outside the
understanding that that happened like in May when you were just talking in general, so that's good.
It seems like we met actually even in the fall a couple of times, the last time around, before
Yeah,
we
I
started to meet
think
face to
we
face.
met maybe
Yeah.
the early part of the fall. I think you're right, Frank, but certainly it's not going to be where you don't have the opportunity to garner the information from your colleagues
Okay, that's
before we
good.
get started.
And I think
Actually,
last time they hired a facilitator, didn't they, to help train the people,
Right.
the teachers and the school committee people?
And this particular time, they probably would definitely have training for the whole group.
Right.
I do remember last time, before the negotiations actually started, there was periods where, because I was on the committee, but I wasn't on the negotiating committee. There was time set aside for us to discuss
Okay, good.
things that, we felt should be part of
Okay.
the negotiations.
Okay.
So, and we had the opportunity to, do as much or as little as we wanted.
Okay.
From that respect, it was just once it started, then, so we
Okay.
have to prepare before, we all have to prepare beforehand, before you start.
Right, okay.
Okay, then, could we move on to the goal setting? Now, Steve, the goals that we received from you on April 29th, are those?
No, that was just and I want to thank the school committee members for collecting, this was the compilation of sticky notes from the training
okay.
session
Okay,
on the 29th.
all right.
And we discussed with the regional school committee last week the fact that this was not intended to be anything more than a collection of those thoughts.
Okay.
I think there was some fear that this might become really part and parcel of actual goal setting. It's really a guiding document and for thinking about the goals. But going back to the training that we had on April 29th, I'll be constructing performance goals, district goals, and student learning goals related to, in part, some of the thoughts collected from April 29th. But certainly this would be an opportunity, as we did with the region, some folks went around and just offered another thought more in the form of a goal, because there was some real concern that what they were offering what members from the regional school committee offered weren't really in the form of goals, what they were writing, and therefore what was captured herein on this document that was sent. So this, through the chair, if there was any interest in offering any more food for thought, because over the next 10 days or so, I'll have to spend some real serious time in developing those goals with related actions and measurable outcomes as per the construct of not only my contract, but also within the state evaluation framework.
So then you're envisioning presenting that back to us to either approve or disapprove or
In June,
correct?
absolutely. So there'll be a document for you at the next meeting.
Okay, all right. All right, next we have our meeting schedule. Now, I think most of you have the proposed meeting schedule, and we have some little marks on October 8th, February 11th, and April 8th. So those are the ones that were, I think, basically cut out this year. So we have to decide whether we want to do that for next year, or whether we want to have all these meetings as listed here. The other thing we might want to think about is, when we get in the budget process, we might want to think about penciling in 2 or 3 extra meetings right around when Christine or Steve thinks that we will be doing dynamic things and settling the budget process, so that we can meet, not have to catch up so much in between these meetings. When do you envision that being, Christine, as far as the budget season. I know it's gonna start tomorrow, but
Starting to think about it.
No, I would say February and March are the real push times. But the problem is and Steve, jump in.
Sure, I mean, I know that the Dover School Committee, I believe, was looking at, going back to an email with Dawn, I think they were looking to have a meeting actually in December, a meeting dedicated to the budget.
you mean besides their December 17th meeting?
Correct, I believe so, or dedicating the 17th meeting for that exclusive purpose. And I'd have to go back to the emails with Dawn to confirm that. But there was a desire around the holidays to have that meeting.
Steve,
Yeah.
one of the things you might want to take into consideration is you may not have the contract resolution at that time,
Right.
and you may have to wait for that, or at least leave a little bit of flexibility for you to get that figure in for salary.
Well,
Right.
if we don't set those now, then it's something we should definitely do, like say in the November 12th meeting that we have, is to look at setting perhaps 2 future or more meetings dedicated to the budget, so we'll have time to go over it and tear it apart without feeling that we're rushed and have to.
And I would think we need to keep the February 11th meeting. I would say that taking it out this year was didn't necessarily work. It was an experiment. I didn't think it worked because I felt like we had to then scramble to make meetings
Okay.
anyway, so we might as well keep that.
I agree.
All right, and what about,
I would like to keep them all. It seems like it's easier to cancel a meeting than it is to call a meeting. And in terms of the public that wants to show up, I think that was a problem with some of the budget meetings that got lined up with short notice, difficult for people to adjust their schedules. Again, I think I said this last year or earlier in the year. It's 2.5 hours a meeting. It's not that much time. And even our regional meetings, we canceled these because we have a region meeting. Those seem to get pushed for time, and it's the only time that we can sit down and discuss things, in general. I would advocate keeping the ones that are on here, and as you said, maybe in the fall setting, a couple more when we have a better idea when.
okay, I would be comfortable with that. I mean, I know we are trying to save, the superintendents running around and ourselves running around, but I think that.
I would advocate
Yep.
too of finding a way to keep the meetings more streamlined. A lot of times when the teachers come, they sit for a long time before they make a presentation, or Chris doesn't have to come to every. I would say Chris doesn't have to come to every meeting. So look.
An idea though, I actually think I brought this up to you. I'd like to think about, and this would throw the whole schedule off, so maybe not for next year, but if potentially saying, like the second Tuesday of the month is both Dover and Sherborn, so you don't have to, and they'll allot an hour and a half, and one goes early 1 month, and the other one is later, and then you flip it the next month.
You mean like meet at the region, you mean?
Well, you could, or you could
Yeah.
just have the meetings in the different places and give the superintendents and
Travel time?
it's a little bit of travel time. But the idea of only having it be one night, then, I don't know, I'm looking for Christine.
No, I'd rather do
Yeah.
one night and get it over.
Well, you just.
One of the
Steve needs to
things that
address
I don't
this,
know.
yeah.
One of the things that, I believe Dover meets Monday night, and I do believe that they're going to strike their October, February, and April meetings. That's at least without a vote. So to your point, Ann, which was a good one, the notion of sort of conjoining meetings and even potentially having that overlap time. So if there was something like foreign language that was germane to both bodies, it would definitely be more efficient. For instance, if there was an update on the foreign language program, that would be interesting rather than drawing out folks on 2 evenings. If there was a request for a presentation.
So that's not a bad idea then for you guys,
It certainly limits the number of meetings, and it
Yeah.
also keeps us to something of a time constraint, to be very efficient.
However, with regard to the time constraint for people that, granted, not many people show up, but if there are things that we want to discuss, I hate things being pushed, like the last regional meeting. we were only going to get 10 minutes to discuss a topic. We wound up taking, an hour and a half. But it's nice to put a time limit on it, but sometimes you need to go beyond it. I mean, I can just think of lots of questions that I would like to ask, but I'm just
I do like
intimidated
that,
by the clock.
I do like
May I
that
offer a suggestion? One of the things that was very interesting this year with the shifting of who's on first, who's on second, who's having a meeting, who's not having a meeting, the preparation for the meetings does require time. And we do try to get the material to you in as timely a fashion. Yes, it was very nice this April because we had a break there. But I will tell you that there are also some difficulties that are encountered from the operational piece where you're thinking you've got these monthly meetings and you're then, whoops, I don't meet with Sherborn this, I've got to push this over to the next month. So I think that, to me, a key would be, and I think Stephen will be a real positive on this, but if you had your timely meetings where they were tight and perhaps there was a portion of it that it was business, and then if you had a need to have a discussion on something, that perhaps there was time on the agenda that was specifically identified, conversation needed, discussion needed, because we don't do that right now. And I think that there are some real important issues that you've raised that get lost for that same reason, Greg, that time starts getting away from us. Or, an example, tonight, Donna gave a presentation. I think we originally talked about 5 to 7 minutes, and I think it was more like 45. But it was a good presentation, it was important, and you all were interested in that. I think the structure of how you want to do this, and I think, Frank, you and Steve really should have a little bit of think time on that, as well as the input from the board, because maximizing your time, getting as much covered as you can, but also having some time to have those conversations, to me, would be important. And it's something that I'm sorry that I didn't do a little bit better for you all.
Well, what happened this year, too, was we took out those meetings and we wound up scheduling a meeting almost around the same time.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of bodes to having just a date set that we might not have the same structured meeting. You're talking about structure. Maybe maybe the ones that are crossed out, we leave the date there, we save the date, but we have a little different structure. We don't have to, there's certain topics maybe we don't have to cover every month. And maybe certain meetings have special topics. I don't know, maybe that would be.
Sure. One of the things I was thinking about was the September 10th meeting, when that packet goes out, we have literally been in school for 3 or 4 days. And then we have a school committee meeting September 10th. There isn't a lot there certainly isn't, we're not far enough into the fiscal year. If there was an appetite to begin the meeting schedule in October and then carry right through, have the October, the February, the April, that might just be another angle. Because that September meeting, it's so new. There isn't a lot other than opening activities to report on.
But this year, maybe it could be a time to talk about the negotiations, because you would have met.
Right. We would have met,
So,
yeah.
So this year, that might be a good, like
Yeah.
a special
Special
topic.
topic.
Special topic.
Like
Well,
an after-school special.
And having these meetings in here, one of the things that I found this last year with not having those meetings, it just put that many more topics on the agenda to cover, and trying to keep it in a tight time frame, made it challenging to have those further discussions should you want them and anything else. So, I felt that was a real challenge this last year, and maybe that combination of what you're saying, Sue.
Yeah.
Keeping those meetings and looking at what we put in those meetings,
Yeah.
and or just having fewer things in all of the meetings so that we have a little more time for discussion, and maybe we just end early if we need to, or it goes longer if it needs to. But hopefully we get done by 8:30 or.
So it's harder to clear a space too if you don't already have it down there.
Right,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true.
But,
Very hard.
And also, when you discuss something on September 17th and you skip to November,
Yeah.
if you're going to hear something for it's 2 months, it's a
Yeah.
long time. If you're going to if somebody's going to get back to you on something, or you're going to discuss something
If,
further.
if I could work with Mr. Hess on it, only because another thing that we began chatting actually at the assistant superintendent, kind of the candidate debriefing, for those of you who were there, last Friday, was the notion of having not necessarily the need to bring out the entire administrative cabinet for a meeting. I mean, to have the principal, the assistant superintendent, the superintendent, the business manager, the director of special education. If there isn't really something on the agenda germane to a particular office, let's not have the person there. So, I mean, in all honesty, I just don't see the need to bring everyone to every meeting. And that will help on our end to meet the need of the number of meetings on that end.
Okay, so then, we'll have to see if we can
Sure.
adjust that, but I mean, as far as the schedule, would someone want to move then that we approve the schedule as listed, including all the crossed-out dates?
The only, one thing that Dawn asked me about was that May 13th meeting, if we want to make sure it is before town elections, as opposed to, like here, we're having it after town election, so that business from, I mean, it doesn't affect us
Right.
that, because we have the same committee, but if there's a big change.
I think that is set later in the year, so I think
Yeah,
we
we don't-
almost would have to approve
don't
this
know.
one and then adjust it.
We don't know what the town meeting
No.
is next year.
But what we
Okay.
can do is between now and the June meeting, I can check with the town clerk and see if she knows.
Wanna move it
But I
over?
think that that's voted, it depends on when we have town meeting, because the election has to be within a certain number of days of town meeting. And so this year, we had the town meeting in May, normally we have it around the 25th of April. So if they go back to the 25th of April, then it's gonna,
Yeah,
change
did
things.
I say town meeting? I meant elections. I
Pardon
didn't
me?
mean- Did I say town meeting?
No, but he's saying that
Elections.
the
Yeah,
elections are a certain number of
yeah.
days after
Yeah.
town meeting.
Yeah, okay, no, I just want to make sure.
and the selectmen set that when they have a range, but when they set it, that's when it is.
But we did change tonight's meeting
Because
as a
Yes.
result of the election,
Yeah.
because the original date for this particular meeting was yesterday, but that was election day.
Right, otherwise we might have had to change members about 8:15.
All right,
So-
well,
I move we,
That's one way to
just a
end the
minor
meeting, really.
point.
do a motion.
Greg?
I move that we accept the calendar as is, I guess, including the dates that are crossed out.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Now we have the enrollments, the enrollments are in there, I don't know if there's not much of a comment, there's not much change in the enrollments, right?
Nope, we
Look for-
registered a new student since we last met, in kindergarten. A young lady from London.
Okay, and so next we have the agenda items, so we can, once again, any update, any other information I've received on the meeting dates, but also
Mr.
the rest of the
Chair?
appointments.
On June 4th is baccalaureate, and I wonder if the school committee might consider moving either to the 3rd or to the 5th. I would very much like to be in attendance.
All right, why don't you check?
The 3rd is a Monday, and the,
Susan, we have fifth grade open house on the 5th.
oh,
So Monday.
so perhaps the 3rd,
Okay.
Monday the 3rd?
Monday, the 3rd works for me, does it work for you, Sue?
I'm not here, so that won't work for me.
Right,
Okay, so, yeah, the 3rd doesn't work.
I'm
for
out of town that week,
Frank.
that whole week, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Greg, you're out the
So
whole
we-
week that week?
Yes.
So we wouldn't have a quorum then on the 3rd. You two-
Yeah, yeah.
And
Do you have another
Thursday,
committee on the 12th?
Yeah.
We're going to Armenia with him.
the 6th?
The 6th.
I'll send you pictures.
6th is graduation.
Please.
Okay. And what's wrong with the 5th? There was something wrong with that?
Oh,
It's fifth grade open house, and it's the band and chorus concert.
Yeah, that's it.
I have to be there.
I have to be there. Not that
I'll get in trouble if I don't.
Can we go into the next week?
June 10th?
Following week?
June 10th?
Unless you want to meet the 5th
10th is
at,
open.
at
When's
Pine
the-
Hill at about 7:15.
When's the joint
Oh, we
meeting?
could come go to the concert.
Our joint meeting is,
Y'all go.
That would work for me.
When's our present joint meeting?
yeah, what's the joint
I'm
meeting? It's
looking.
the
June the 17th, yeah. Thank you, Amy.
All right, so,
Oh,
10th.
would the 17th be late as far as some decisions we make as far as the remaining funds are concerned?
well, that's the joint.
That's the joint
I
meeting?
know, but say if we were to meet before that
Yeah.
meeting.
I
For
like Dr. Brown's idea of maybe meeting on the Wednesday right after the concert. That way we can go to the concert and then have a meeting right after at 7 o'clock. Does that work for?
7:15?
Frank, to answer your question, I think if you met on the 17th and there were any votes or any financial items where there were expenditures that had to be taken care of, it doesn't give a lot of time.
Okay, all right. So,
If you, what about the 10th?
well, the 10th is a possibility. What do you think about meeting after the band concert? What
I'm not
time is
crazy
it?
about it.
Realistically, we probably couldn't start meeting till about 7:45.
Oh,
I think that's too
Uh,
late. All
Right.
right, so looking at the 10th.
I'm good with that.
Okay, how is the 10th for people?
I could do the 10th.
10th works for me.
Okay, then,
That's the mingle in the middle, I don't know if that only affects me or anybody else here. I can do it from the, I mean, I just
Do it
don't
from
know
the tape.
if that matters for you or not.
you know.
Not really, not
Yep.
for middle and middle. For Brian and Scott, it affects them. That's
Okay, why don't we, someone want to move that we change the meeting to the 10th?
10? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank
Okay,
you,
so we're on the 10th. Okay, and if you have any additional agenda items, you can
We need to do
Yeah, we just have to
let me know.
make sure we
I
remember to
said I
do
was going to
this.
do that in the June meeting.
Yeah, the 10th.
Right. So this has.
Yeah, right,
You're
that's,
asking for future.
oh, I'm
items.
sorry, I thought you meant now.
That's one of the
Yeah,
meetings
okay,
after.
I'm okay. Right. So appointments.
And is he taking agenda items?
Any other items or business?
We need,
I'm sorry.
No,
The
go
student
ahead.
the student and family handbook, the school improvement plan, acceptance of any grants from DSEF that are related to Pine Hill.
also? Okay.
Yeah, we need to grant that. And if we have any grants from, that we need to formally adopt from CSI.
Okay. Any other items?
There will also be an important financial report, but that is standard, and at that particular point, we will have talked with Barbara to see if there were additional expenditures that needed to be approved.
Okay. If not, someone want to move we adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Favor?
Yes,
Thank you all.
thank you.
At 9:03.